Want to bring you a very important story here on Live Now from Fox for the month of May. It's Military Appreciation Month, a way to show support and show our thanks to the men and women who have served us in the armed forces. There are so many, thousands of people continuing to serve and so many veterans who have served in the past. To discuss this more, I now want to go ahead and bring in Lee Ellis. He is the president over there at Leading with Honor, a leadership and development team. Training and coaching company. Good morning, Lee. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Why is it so? Thank
Great
you.
to be
And
with you.
why is it so important that we both celebrate and honor our veterans and active duty professionals?
Well, our veterans have served and sacrificed, and when you show appreciation to someone, it really lifts them up, inspires them, and helps them feel healthier, feel accepted. It's so important. You know, I was in the Vietnam War. I was a fighter pilot. I was shot down and captured and held as a POW for 5.5 years. When we came home, we were welcomed home. Now, that was incredible welcome home that we got because of what the wives and families had been doing for several years to promote our situation and to get the communists to stop the torture and change our treatment. But most Vietnam veterans came home and they were not welcomed home. In fact, often they were spit on and treated so badly because the anti-war people treated them as though they were the problem when those people had just served their country well and what they were supposed to do. So I know what it means to be accepted and appreciated. And when you do that to a veteran and let them know that they're important, they're valued, you care about them, you smile at them and say, thank you for your service. That is a powerful thing. It's so simple. But you know, that sort of thing says that you're accepted. We appreciate you. And those are like rays of love that come to a person and help them feel more powerful, more acceptable of themselves. They become healthier people. And they can kind of give that love away to others more easily because they have been kind of lifted up a little bit and put on a little pedestal. Now they want to give that sort of thing to others. So it's a very healthy thing. And in today's culture, you know, very few people have been in the military. Very few people are going in the military. And the military is a different way of life, very different from, much more so now, I think, than it was 40 or 50 years ago when our war was going on. It ended 50 years ago this year, by the way. But to be accepted and let people know that they're important and valued is so important, and especially now that we're having a hard time recruiting for the military. So all the services, I think, are struggling a little bit to meet their goals for recruitment.
Well, Lee, I thank you for your service there in the military there. I can't imagine what you experienced during Vietnam, especially, you know, that war, of course, had a lot of public sentiments during the time, a lot of people arguing against it. But of course, we do know the soldiers sent over there doing what they essentially following orders from the government at the time. And we've seen that really across many wars. But the reality is that the men and women in the service are there to help defend the government, to help defend the people of America, and they fight valiantly for that. We do know, though, also, you know, there's a lot of folks that are struggling after returning from service. Combat is extremely tenuous on a person's mind, body, and if you will, their soul. And so what are the support things that are necessary for folks that, you know, have served in the armed forces, coming back from recent wars, also continuing to battle with things like Malaysia or malaria and those sorts of things from decades and decades ago?
Yes, you know, the most important thing is to be in a community that cares about you and connects with you. After World War II, the veterans had less PTSD. They had some, of course, warriors always do, but they had less because they rode a ship back home for 30 days with people who had been through at least as bad and probably worse and longer than they had. Well, the POWs, we went through that same thing. We had time to recover after the torture stopped in communities, in cells. We were put in larger cells with 40 to 50 people in there. We lived with them for a long time, and we were accepted as the way we were. And then, you know, coming back home, the veterans from World War II, they got in the American Legion and the VFW. They would go there on a couple of times a week and have a beer with their buddies and talk about the war. And so that helped them kind of recondition themselves for being back in society. Today, if you're in the war fighting over in the Far East there, the Middle East, wherever, and it's time to go home, you get on an airplane, you fly home. One day you see your buddy get shot up and he's dying there. The next day you're sitting at dinner with your family. And it's just not time to process. So getting back into community and having some kind of community around them that lets them know, hey, we're with you, we appreciate you, we value you, we understand you're struggling here, can be very, very powerful. Community is so important because in community, people feel connected at the heart. And when you're connected at the heart, it brings healing. My wife has been a licensed counselor for 20-some years. She's dealing more and more with veterans who are having PTSD. Some of that is because of our culture. They haven't grown up as quite as resilient as we were back growing on the farm in the 50s and the 40s. But it's still a problem. And we just need to let them know they're valued and appreciated. That's the one thing that we all can do. And the PTSD folks really need to get into counseling and then get into a group who are struggling with the same problem. It is so helpful to do that. The POWs, we had 3 years to recover after they stopped the torture before we came home. And that really made a difference. We came home very healthy. Our PTSD rate is much lower than the combat veterans from South Vietnam, even though we were 5, 6, 7, 8 years as POWs, 2 or 3 years, 4 years as torture, living alone at times for short periods of time or for long periods of time. But we would resist the enemy to stay connected to our teammates. We would take great risk to let people know, hey, we're here with you. We appreciate you. We're not going home without you. And you're important. That is so healing to people to know that whenever you can give them appreciation, it really makes a difference.
What's the best way you feel people here at home in America can show that type of appreciation?
It starts with a smile. A smile is a ray of love. When you smile at somebody and say, thank you for your service, thank you for what you did, thank you for wearing that uniform. You know, I know you've been places and done things that most of us would never do. And we just really appreciate you. That's step one. And then get to know them a little bit better and see where you might be able to build a relationship with them and encourage them if they might need it to get into counseling or help them find a good job that really helps fit their talents. I've helped a lot of people. When I retired, I built a career assessment program for teenagers, but when we got through, the adults demanded it more than they demanded it for their teenagers. So we found out that having people understand who they are, they're a unique person, and when your work matches your talents and your mission and your purpose and your interests, then you're going to be much happier at work every day. As leaders, I speak to a lot of leaders, and I really encourage them. You got to let people know that they're valued, they're important. Encourage them. You know, I talk about the 4 A's: acknowledge their existence, appreciate them, just affirm them, all those kind of things to let them know that they're important. Gallup's research shows that in the workplace, when you show somebody, encourage them and let them know that you appreciate and value them, their performance goes up, their retention goes up, because they're just healthier people and they appreciate being appreciated.
Who doesn't appreciate being appreciated? You brought up a lot of salient points too, just about how times have changed, how some of the support systems are, just based on the technologies that we have, such as taking an aircraft carrier home, or a ship home for 30 days. It's just much simpler for the soldiers today, taking maybe a 12-hour, 15-hour flight home. But of course, needing that support when they do arrive home, very important to all of that as we celebrate our military members this month during the month of May. Thanks so much to Lee Ellis with leading.
I did want to mention, Captured by Love is really important at work and at home. Well, this is 20 stories of POWs who were Captured by Love. There were POWs more than 5 years, and it's about their love stories and their wives and what their wives did back home. These women in the late 1960s and the 1970s, they stood up and they changed the policy of the U.S. government in a very diplomatic and kind way, but firm. And they changed the policy of the communist government. And those stories are in this book, and all the POW stories in this book were there 5 to 8 years. We had 2 of them there 8 years. And I think you'll love those stories. You can go to our website, powromance.com, and read some of those stories. And it has links there to where you can buy the book online.
Oh, Lee Ellis, thanks so much there with Leading with Honor, also author and Vietnam War veteran and POW. Thank you so much for your service and for taking the time to talk to us about this very important topic this morning, Lee.
Thank you so much, Ahmad. Good to be with you, man.
I appreciate it. All righty, Lee. Have a great day. Okay.